Welcome to the Enlightenment Evolution Hour. I am your host, Rob Gauthier, the ET Whisperer. The Enlightenment Evolution Hour is a part of the Enlightenment Evolution Network. Any ideas or opinions expressed by myself, the guest, or a caller may not necessarily reflect the same opinions of the Enlightenment Evolution Network. Enlightenment defined. It's the state of giving and receiving greater knowledge and understanding about a certain subject or situation. Evolution defined. The gradual development of something, especially from a simple to a more complex form. So what then is Enlightenment Evolution? The state of giving and receiving greater knowledge as we develop from a simple to a more complex human being, living on Earth for our soul's experience. Welcome now and join us as we explore our Enlightenment Evolution Hour together. Hey, welcome everybody. Hello. Hey. This is Rob Gauthier, the ET Whisperer. And I'm the host of the Enlightenment Evolution Hour, and the Enlightenment Evolution Hour is live streamed at both the Enlightenment Evolution Hour Facebook and the Matrix Minds Media Facebook page. If you haven't gone to see the Matrix Mind Media page, please check them out. Amazing people, amazing guy who runs. And he's also going to be running his Matrix Minds late night show tonight at midnight Eastern, which would be probably 9 Pacific if we're doing quick math. That'll be 9 Pacific. So go check out a show there. Thank you for allowing us to live stream on your platform, brother. Happy Thanksgiving to everybody coming up tomorrow. It's a wonderful day. Family get together, all those things, and that'll be great. And happy Wednesday for all of you. We're here every Wednesday, 10 o'clock p.m. Eastern Time. That's 7 Pacific on the Enlightenment Evolution Hour every Wednesday. And we are definitely excited about today's guest. We have the Atom Twister. A lot of you guys have been waiting for him, wrapped in mystery, cloaked in an enigma. You hear about him, you're not sure about who he is or what he is or how he's doing or what's happening. But he is here tonight, and we are going to have a blast chatting. Some of you get the sneak peek by looking at the bio, which is amazing. Matthew Turner, hello, brother. Welcome. I see him in the chat. Matrix Mind Media. He'll be on at midnight, guys. The link is in the description at the bottom. If you go to the affiliate links, places that we produce our show with consent of and in concert with a few different places. Matrix Mind Media is the one in bottom. We're also on the Forbidden Knowledge News Network. We're also on Conscious Awakening Network. So that's amazing, guys. Before we get to the show tonight, before we bring this amazing guest in, what we're going to do is go through quick announcements. And I forgot totally to pull up my calendar beforehand, guys. So give me a second. Bear with me here. Tonight, let's talk about the network. The network is going well, guys. As you guys know, we added a new show, The Mothership, and it's not on our network channel yet. We're going to be putting it there. We're also going to be putting it on the other affiliate networks that we had talked about with the Forbidden Knowledge News, and we're going to be putting that on Conscious Awakening. So check out those guys there, but we're also going to be uploading it. For those of you guys who don't know, we do have the Enlightenment Evolution Network YouTube channel. If you haven't subbed there, go there. All the old shows, well, not all of them, most of the old shows are archived there. We've got about 6 or 7 different shows that are archived over there with different hosts. And we're also going to be adding all the new ones there, so go check that out. But for the Enlightenment Evolution Hour next week, we're going to have Ryder Lee, and that's going to be the 30th. So at the very end of the month, we're going to have Ryder Lee, who is the podcast host of Sleeping with Giants, and we also have, um, I believe Ruben Langdon is going to be on the 7th. On the 14th, we have the Holman couple, which we'll be sharing more about them as it gets closer. Um, the 21st, we don't have it announced yet, but we're going to have some more guests popping in here. And honestly, I keep saying December hasn't been filled out yet, and it still hasn't been filled out, and that's because we've been going full blast. So we really haven't had an opportunity to stop and get all those set up. But we do have a few guests ready, and then it takes us into the next week. December 28th is going to be a very big show. That is going to be myself and Matthew Turner from the Matrix Mind Media doing a simulcast live stream broadcast together. We're going to mix our two shows to give off the big bang at the end of the year for all of you guys. And we're going to be talking to each other, sharing things with one another, asking each other questions. I imagine we haven't really nailed down a format, but it sounds probably like something that we would do. So, yes, it's going to be an amazing, amazing thing. Um, for the ET Whisper, we still have our sexuality healing course, the healing sexuality course. I'm going to play that quick promo for you guys. It's just a minute long. It gives you an idea of what the course is about. And we've actually found that the Q&A sessions that go in between the weeks, because we're on our last week now. Next Tuesday will be the fourth, or this Tuesday was the fourth installment, and then we'll have the fourth Q&A this coming Friday, which will be released probably Monday. So we'll end up having the last part of our course dropping Monday, but you can always jump in anytime, or you can wait till the whole course is over and join. It'll be there forevermore, both for sale and for people who buy it. They have access to it for their whole life. And it'll end up being around 8 1 hour recorded channelings. Half of those are Q&A, the other half are the course material, and then in between each course material being dropped, there's a Q&A between from people who are there live with us, who ask questions about the previous part of the course. Really amazing stuff. It went really, really well, and we're going to be finishing that course up very soon. So if you want to join us to the tail end of the course and get in some questions for the Q&A, here it is, guys. Enjoy this, and when we get back, we will have the Adam Twister with us live here personally, guys. I love you guys. Thank you so much for being here. Thank you for the chat. You guys are always amazing in the chat, and I appreciate both the Matrix Mind Media people in here who are on the Facebook chat, and I appreciate all my YouTube chat people. Love you guys. I will see you in just about 1 minute.
Looking through the construct, the technical attributes of the human sexuality, the energetic mechanics of co-creation, creation, individual understanding, part of the energy fields the human collective consciousness as a singular entity into your collective consciousness. Sexuality affects all beings.
All right, everyone. Well, I jumped the gun. Well, there's nothing more there but words, so you can read them if you want. I apologize for talking over. Oh, pulled the trigger a little too quick there, but that's all right, guys. We have the Adam Twister with us tonight. From his own words, Adam Twister said he was born in Texas, a few miles from where he lives, but was raised in Texas, Florida, California, Pennsylvania. Family came back to Texas. The foremost themes of his life have always been love and exploration, encountered and overcome great hardships to do those things. And just like wildlife, he learned he had to survive to make a few mistakes or while making a few mistakes, and after surviving those mistakes, went into sorry guys, I'm tongue tied tonight. I apologize. It's been a weird day. Was in a position to make it. The journey in science is what led him eventually to encounter Bashar, and there was a very high degree of probability that he had. If that had not happened, he wouldn't be alive today. 2015, 16, that's when he found Bashar and helped save his life. Shortly after encountering Bashar, found and worked deeply with the wisdom of TReb, Aridif, myself, and Kalina, and people who spoke to TReb and Aridif. They shared their personal sessions, and Adam Twister got a lot from that. Also found Darryl and Bashar's wisdom very useful, and from working with that wisdom, has a more conventional scientific thought. And he is going to bring that process of thought, bring both the science experience, metaphysics, and everything that he's learned along the way. He's going to come in here and share that all with us. Adam Twister, hello, hello. Thank you so much, brother, for being here tonight. Welcome.
Well, it's very exciting to be here with all of you, and it's really it's an honor is an understatement. You know, I almost feel like I'm some dude who's basically been picked up in the street and then thrown into a radio broadcast, and it's really kind of it's an interesting thing, but I know that's all the way my emotional structure sort of perceives it, but. It's really good to be here, and it's good to see all of you. I'm looking at the chat as well. Omni Collector, shout out to you. It's good to see you. Hello, Kalina. It's really exciting to see all of you. Almost beyond words, really. And it's interesting because this kind of excitement sometimes becomes unknown to me with some of the layers of my consciousness. It's just the way my energy shifts and moves. It's just really, well, I mean, it shifts like the scales on the chimes change.
And then in the background, the chimes that you're playing, can you share a little bit about that before we jump into it?
Yes, I believe I can. So, I'm actually going to be doing a studio tour very soon, which will showcase all the chimes that I use here in the studio. There are 4 companies that I buy chimes from, with one of them being Woodstock Chimes, another one being Music of the Spheres down in Austin, Texas, a third one being Grace Note Chimes over in Mariposa, California, and the 4th one being Wind River Chimes over at Manassas Park, Virginia. I can recommend all of those hands down. All of those people really do make excellent chimes, especially Music of the Spheres and Grace Note and Wind River. They still make chimes here in America, and I actually had plans to go down to the Music of the Spheres showroom. If you guys check out my latest video, you'll see that it is actually a video. It's not a piece of music. It's where I showcase a new concept that I wish to share with all the chime companies, with a wind chime that you can easily change the notes on, and at will change the scale of a set of chimes. That's a very useful thing here in the studio. But there are so many problems that something like that would solve. Pair it with a chimeophone that has a corresponding setup, and you can take notes off the chimeophone and make a wind chime whatever scale you want. You can change the scale every day. And it's a lot of fun to do that, although I actually don't take the notes out of my studio very often. So, because I need them here, and I play my music here a lot.
And I can help you mute too, Adam Twister, because I know it's a little bit of a stretch for you too, and we did get a little bit of the echoing earlier, but no worries. The question I ask everyone before we get into all the things, because you have the chimes, you have all these things we want to talk about, and I know we can go in a million directions all at the same time. because we've gotten to know each other well enough, but nobody else knows you. So what we want to do is find out what made you the person that you were, that opened you up to being able to find the information that you found, that opened you up to be the person who enjoyed the music and the chime vibration and sharing that, and the person that opened you up to being the person that you are, that was able to have the story that you have now, the experience that you had now, and everything that has to do with that.
Yeah, that's a very interesting question as far as the chimes go. And you know, with all of this, there really was no person per se. With the chimes, well, actually, there is. A lady that lives down the street from me had a musically tuned wind chime that I kind of liked. Then one day I went over to Callaway's and I came across Corinthian bells. Oh, by the way, the chimes that she had would be the Woodstock Encore Chimes of Earth. Very nice set of chimes. Not really all that expensive compared to a lot of what I have in this studio. My goodness. But then I went over to Callaway's and came across Corinthian bells. And I mean, Corinthian bells look really high end compared to like the Encore line from Woodstock. Heavy walled tubing. And they have really an exceptional sound. And you know, I was over there looking at, you know, the 30-inch Corinthian bells in Ruby Splash. Got that, you know, just liked that set of chimes. Brought that home. I looked at another set while I was there, you know, the 65-inch. And at the time, that was $500. And I was like, who would spend $500 on a wind chime? About 3 or 4 months later, I find myself ordering one of those. And, I mean, I fell in love with the thing. I fell in love with it, and actually, this here, I'm going to go ahead and play those notes, because I have those Corinthian bells in here. Here they are. So this set of chimes is really my first large set of wind chimes, followed, you know, fairly quickly by this one. And with those, my interest in music just escalated, and it just evolved, and it evolved so naturally that there really wasn't, like, I've noted in my log all of the, all of the points of evolution in it. So it's really a fascinating thing to just go ahead and look at that. And for those of you, many of you, so Rob said many of you don't know me, and it's true, many of you might not know me physically, but if you really read into your own energy and see if you've actually connected to me energetically, you might actually have some sense of me. Many of you in one layer or another of your consciousness actually have connected to me, much as you connect to many of your extraterrestrial guides. So some of you might actually have some impressions about me that you might notice ringing as you hear my voice and as you listen to my words and also hear what I do in here. I communicate a lot of my essence in music because it's very challenging for me to share in words a lot of what I have physically with people. So I really do that more in the capacity that Aridif does, by leaving my consciousness available with all of you to connect to at your leisure, much as Aridif leaves his consciousness with the Earth Collective. That way people can go ahead and take my consciousness and make it a part of themselves, or leave it behind at their leisure, and there is no forcing in any way, shape, or form, on my part, and that leaves the energy as neutral as I possibly can leave it, since I am wanting to become a Type 1 being. And going into detail with how that sprouted, that really kind of goes all the way back to the beginning. I've always kind of held a fairly neutral mentality. As a kid, I was kind of wild and bombastic, and over time, with watching Star Trek and Omni Collective Creativity, you say C minor, it's actually E flat major, even though if you move it down one note, it becomes C minor, such as this. Oop, wrong note. Then, of course, as my life went on, I faced more hardship, but also these were the times where I was watching Star Trek and appreciated the value of logic. And also from watching House MD, appreciating how important it is to be objective. And all of these are kind of hanging around the neutrality and the neutral energy that you guys talk about. It allows me to go ahead and see and read every aspect of my reality to really understand how it works without being biased one way or another. And carrying that mentality, having just an intrepid desire to explore that ultimately prevailed over everything else. That is what eventually led me on a scientific journey where I got to understand how particles work and particle physics and stuff like that. And eventually I learned about UFOs and managed to, after having seen a UFO for the first time, bridge the gap between Einstein's work and Tesla's work. And I actually have the wisdom to build one of these things if I have the equipment to do it. And I not only can build one, I can build it better than the military did. Don't tell them I said that. Well, actually, never mind. I kind of already shared that with them. What makes this design better is it uses conventional design. It doesn't use exotic materials. And it only creates gravity dampening field where it needs to. And that way it's not threatening your health by throwing your body's mitosis rates out of sync. So this ship is safer to operate and it's faster. And or at least in theory it is. I mean, you'd have to fine tune the design, and we actually don't have the technology physically to build this thing right now. If you really want to get to the level of precision that I would prefer to. But, over at Tat City, which, I mentioned in the chat, all of these concepts and variations on, it's basically based on the Tholian ship from the Star Trek, the original series, and the original effect. It almost looks like an arrowhead. I wanted to go ahead and build that at one point, but never really brought that to fruition here. But there's a variant of that uses physical technology, and there's a variant of that that's basically an empty shell, where it actually has no physical mechanism, but instead behaves on your command as you work the controls, as you've coded that all into your own consciousness. So the physics of the craft are literally at your command. And
before we get too deep into that, sorry, I muted you too because I heard the echo popping out. Before we get too deep into that, let's go back to a couple things that you said already. So the first thing is you said you communicate through your music because sharing the way that you might feel or connect with another person has been hard for you to do in words. So if you look back at your childhood as you're growing into a teen and as you become an adult, what are some of the things that helped you before you found music to help communicate with it, or was it something that was always music? Did it just jump to music? And share a little bit about that and the process there.
So, we were talking about music, and music is really something that it's that thing that never kind of came to fruition. I mean, at once I wanted to kind of play the guitar, but I really communicated by word of mouth and became exceptionally skilled at doing that. Working really hard to be able to communicate all these concepts of quantum physics and stuff like that to people, because I know that people can learn this stuff. It's not like either you know it or you don't. Although, building under an understanding of it can take some time, anybody can do it. And having logged so closely my own evolution in that, I did just that. So I guess the idea is, I really communicated by word of mouth. But, working with the kind of consciousness that I work with now and coming to understand people's beliefs and stuff like that, if I were to share a lot of this with a lot of people, I would find myself not only facing resistance from the other people's beliefs and possibly having unwanted reactions, but also I face my own resistances in my throat chakra, or at least that's what Aridif would pinpoint it to, since I myself really don't, or at least I didn't until kind of recently, really understand my chakra structure. Although I knew how to use it, but it, it was on a different level of my consciousness. I just worked directly from source rather than, working from any other level, and everything else just, excuse me.
You're all right, brother. And as you pause that,
Yeah, I was coughing.
yeah, go ahead.
I forgot where I was.
All right. So you were basically saying that the structures of the communication that you had when you were trying to facilitate working towards sharing people, so you learned how to communicate verbally really well, and you used that as a teaching of quantum physics and Ardif. Eventually you got to the Ardif part about the chakra system, how you use that, how you connect to that, and you didn't even realize you were using it until, and that's where you left off.
Yeah, I remember now. I actually, a little detail about that. I knew I was using it, but it just wasn't something that I needed to know the mechanism of, because I just knew, like my heart beats and my, I breathe and my body does this thing, so does my chakra system. So it wasn't something that I really needed to know all the details on unless I became curious about it, which I did eventually. And I also kind of stumbled across it and started to recognize some of the things after having listened to so much of the material that you channeled. But yes, music was that thing that it didn't really come to fruition until later when I started working with wind chimes. Oh yes, so as I would talk to people, my own beliefs would create resistance that would cause me to have difficulty iterating into words, especially in some situations. It's just like if a comedian gets up on stage and then he gets nervous, then he stalls. It's that same phenomenon or something pretty similar to it. And so that's what I find myself facing. And then, of course, I can overcome that, but sometimes it's just not the right time. Like, I follow my heart above all else. And, sometimes the energy is just not ready, and I have to go ahead and work with the energy before I can really go any farther. And I trust in my own heart, and I'm patient enough to go ahead and, evolve and not try to force any consciousness. It never goes well, for really anybody.
So that's an interesting thing. The way I'm understanding what you're saying is that sometimes when the communication becomes overwhelming on some kind of energetic level, emotional level, that you kind of have to shut down even the verbal communication, or are you speaking about the energy of the verbal? And when that happens, what does that look like for communicating later after you've sifted through the emotion and or words and or thought?
Well, I mean, I just let go of the fear, and then, the energy is clear, and then I can share. But, sometimes it's more than that. Sometimes, the layout of the collective consciousness that I'm with, where everybody's thoughts are and stuff like that, sometimes people have to do a little bit more figuring before, they're really going to understand. Otherwise, if I go ahead and say it and then become more forceful, they're going to become more stubborn and they're going to fight me. And then they get unhappy, and then, I end up basically arguing with the sun. I get nowhere and I get burned. So there's no point in doing that. You have to be patient with people. You have to have faith in them. You have to trust in them. And you also have to trust in yourself. And, know that existing in a collective that evolves over a linear continuity, things take time, with this kind of structure. And yes, it's true, you can make instant shifts if you want to, but sometimes, and as is in my case, I enjoy the journey. I enjoy being there for people and watching them evolve. And they help me evolve a lot. I learn so much from people. Like, I can't even begin to tell you how much I learn from people. And it's not just like from individuals, but it's just from everybody. I learn something from one guy that I come across, something else from another guy that I come across. And, I share energetically with the people as well, responding, in thought to them. And I use my own voice to guide me. And my family just gets used to hearing this guy talk to himself all the time. I really am talking to other consciousness, and it does work. And I've seen this. It's just really, it's one of those things. And this is why I say, a lot of people might not be ready to experience me in my most raw form. Because I mean, when you see it, you know what I'm talking about. Well, maybe you might be able to, but I guess it just depends.
I want to talk about the experience where you say that during the time you're learning, because this we've talked many times and I've learned a lot about you, but I forget this part. I think you tried to explain it to me once and it probably went over my head, but energetically I can probably understand that if I lock into it and link into it, bring a bit more of Aridif to the game with me. But um, you link the difference between the Einstein and Tesla theories. You bring a bit of better understanding between quantum physics and standard physics. So can you share something about that with us on a level that we, as people who don't necessarily know that we're familiar with that information, can kind of dig a little deeper on that, or can have at least some basic understanding?
Whew, okay, challenge accepted. I'm a bit rusty. First, before I go talk about physics, Naraya Ward, beginner chimes to start with. Right now, Grace Note Chimes has a sale, 40% off all of their chimes. Go visit them. You can't beat, the amount of chime that you get for your money is absolutely wild. Let me ring a few Grace Notes for you. Let's start with the Small Earth Song. Let's see if there's a good medium chime that'll harmonize with that. Which one?
And can you share the notes or the chime that you're playing too?
The notes? Oh, this is an E minor. E, G, A, B, D, E. Actually, Omni Collective Creativity in the chat might be the better guy to ask for that, because he knows his music, and translating the sound to letters is something that I'm a little slow on and might have a tendency to make a mistake, although I got it right because Grace Note chimes have the notes etched on their sail, so I could just read it.
You're both the best customer and the greatest salesman for those guys. I know how much you love them.
Oh yeah, Grace Note chimes, they are absolutely wonderful. And so now we were going to ask about you were asking me to talk a little bit about physics. So I want you guys to go ahead and look into something because everybody has a different experience. And when was it Michael Lee Hill or was it somebody else? Michael Lee Hill was talking about UFOs. Someone was talking about, 432 hertz and the 7-point star, and a very fascinating thing occurred, at least from my perspective, when he showed the sound disc. I didn't see a 7-point star, I saw a 10-point star, and what makes this so interesting to me is how people can really actually have different experiences. And if you actually take a close look at all the documentation on the Phoenix Lights, you're going to see what I'm talking about. All of those are all perfectly real, but whether you've integrated those experiences into your own consciousness or not, you can know that, and it's up to you. And it's up to you which road you can continue to go on. Going more into quantum physics, though, I talk about, what was it? So I wanted to talk about the speed of light. And there should be some documentation on experiments with the speed of light that have been done all over the world, where they go ahead And with the way they can break down a second into, quadrillions of pieces, they can actually calculate pretty accurately the speed of light. So I want y'all to go ahead and take a look at that and see what that is, and take note of the records from tests that have been done on the different parts of the world at different times. And also take note of which direction the Earth is going in at the time that they're doing that, and which part of the Earth is the leading point. As the Earth is not only revolving around the sun, it's also spinning, and then the whole solar system is also in motion, as is the galaxy itself. The thing I'm getting at is if you get the same result where it goes across, a meter of, like a chamber that's, a meter long, in the same amount of time every time, then light is moving at Earth's motion plus z. And you'll notice that, you'll notice a bias in the motion of the speed of light. And you can actually see this with different gravitational bodies. This is something that scientists, at least as far as I'm aware, they've not quite connected the dots and realizing that there are actually a lot more variables with the gravitational field than a lot of people realize. And it's really pretty interesting. So if you play with this a little bit and get to appreciate how, the speed of light, is, you'll notice, okay, this is getting more challenging. But I did iterate enough to leave one really important clue. Let's see, what's another clue that's another piece to that puzzle? Dichotomy of gravitational force and electric force. That one's going to be a lot harder to put into words that are down to earth for someone who's not versed in the field. I don't know.
Maybe what you can do too, and sorry, I didn't want to mute you, but I know it takes you a second to stop on your chimes and get down. So maybe instead of dumbing it down for us, just let us have it. Pull an Aridif and just say, ready or not, I'm giving you everything, whether you can understand it or not. I'll give you time to understand it. You don't dumb it down for us. Just kind of share from that level of the knowledge that you have, regardless of our ability to understand it.
Yeah, this kind of thing, I wouldn't consider it dumbing it down, but it's more using words and terms that might be foreign to some people. But it is true, you can look up these terms and get to know it. So what we're looking at is electric forces versus gravitational forces. And if you go ahead and let's take the kinetic energy of an object. Gosh, I really should have, I really would need a pre-plan for this, because you can have an object with a certain amount of rest energy and a certain amount of kinetic energy that has a certain gravitational field, which is directly proportional to its total energy. Or at least that's the magnitude of the gravitational pull with it. As this, projectile goes faster and faster, it gains more kinetic energy and therefore more gravitational field. And this is actually why you'll notice that one of the aspects of the speed of light seems independent of the energy of the photon. I actually work a lot with lasers, so I've been able to really appreciate this. So if you have two photons, let's say you have a red one, energy E1, and a blue one, energy E2. The blue one, of course, has more energy than the red one, and yet they seem to go at the same speed. If their gravitational field states were identical, then the blue one would go faster than the red one. But they're not, because the gravitational field has directly proportionally increased. Directly proportional to the energy, it has increased. And so because of that, the gravity creates a reduction, on the speed of light. The more gravitational presence there is, the slower particles go with the same amount of kinetic energy. It creates this kind of resistance to it. And because light is pure kinetic energy, and the gravitational field strength is directly proportional to the total energy, the increase in speed is canceled out by the increase in gravity, which therefore causes them to go exactly the same speed. And same goes with gravitational pull. That goes up too linearly. And so when different colors of light are lensed, they're lensed the same way by gravitational fields. That last one, I'd like people to verify that because I haven't checked that. But if I'm not mistaken, that is indeed so. Yeah, because the light coming from the stars coming to the atmosphere that causes them to twinkle in different colors. That's not gravitational lensing. That's optical lensing with atoms and electric fields, and that, of course, because the electric field is going up, not necessarily directly proportionally. It will actually scatter more blue light, and blue light will be lensed differently from red light. Different wavelengths of light will lens differently with atoms by electric force rather than by gravitational force. And so if you play with those dichotomies, you'll really get to appreciate how the gravity field and the electric field. Well, you'll notice some things. I don't really remember what exactly, but I know you'll notice some things. I'll really share a lot more with the physics. I have all this in my personal log, which I hope to release to the collective physically one day. I've noted everything that I know, every aspect of my physics journey, everything that I learned, and how I figured those out. I have over 4,000 hours of log entries to one day release to people, and that number is continuously growing as I'm still, making log entries. But everything must come in its time.
Fair dues, and that's wonderful. And if we get back to the physics topic too, and you can share something about how you kind of link those two separate theories together, that's great. But since we're on this subject about the logs and everything, um, share with everybody about Tat City. Try to explain this concept to everyone. Um, with as much history as you need to give them so that they can understand, what this is, what it's about, how you've come into understanding it, and all the things that are necessary there.
Yeah, that's a very interesting thing. Tat City is something that really, the story of that, wow, that really starts, let's see, where does it start? Give me one moment while I figure that out, because it started, one of the main focal points that eventually led me to realize that I could create that was when I postulated that it was a law of the resistance here in the Earth Collective that prevents me from just snapping my fingers and instantly adding something to reality. Most people, reality is the expression of your consciousness, and most people don't believe that that sort of thing is possible, and therefore the way they have their consciousness set up, they would not be able to co-create that, and therefore I doing something like that would not be able to be the expression of their consciousness. However, TReb and Aridif co-create very differently from that out in the galaxy. And so I figured, with letting go of all the beliefs that say I can't do that from my own fractal consciousness, I could go ahead and say, snap my fingers and instantly give TReb a wind chime. And that's exactly what I did in the session. And once I realized that I could do that, and I basically tried and proved that concept, I realized that I could go much bigger scale. So I created a number of focal points in the galaxy. And they basically are, one is a focal point of science. There's a laboratory. There is, let's see, where did it all start? Because the lab wasn't the first component. There is the laboratory, and there is the what I like to call Tat's Playground, a place where people in all their games, all the cultures, and with all the different games they play, whether it be computer games, arcade games, or sports like soccer and baseball here on Earth, and just all of these different things. They go ahead and do that. And probably my favorite thing to do there is the racetrack, where I can go ahead and share all the really cool cars that we have here on this planet over there, and that is just endless fun to do. And the Enterprise J, which is a ship that I brought to fruition in the galaxy by the same token, although much earlier on, by knowing that all things in creation exist, I knew this existed, and for that matter, a version of it that resonated very deeply with me, which is very close to the archetype that Doug Drexler himself resonated with, the idea of Enterprise J being a ship truly of peace, where people no longer fight, where they're no longer at war, and it's a great congregation of different beings traveling the galaxy with beings aboard. It's almost like a mobile hub where beings come and go from it, share with each other, share their wisdom with other worlds, and enjoy the other worlds sharing wisdom with them. And it's just a great thing. And so Tat City is basically a more static version of that, with a much bigger, what are the words for this? It's like a much bigger, not quite energetic footprint, but there's more consciousness involved. And many beings in the galaxy have integrated this into their consciousness. And in that aspect, it is a part of a galactic collective consciousness. So not only could you go there in astral or dream state, but you can go there physically. So I know there's the medical facility. There's the lab, which is really more focused in physics and the dynamics of physical reality and getting to understand that and working with physical technology. There's a factory where you can go, take a wing in there and start mass producing something. There is a nanotech that we've brought to fruition, and that is not even accounting for the fact that you don't need physical technology to add something to your reality. So, but if you want to use physical technology, the nanites are not just like little swarm robots that work with the fundamental components of the physical reality, but they're alive, much as the nanites from that one episode in the Star Trek The Next Generation are, and they're artists. And the bringing of them to fruition, that was a project that got shelved in my life. But when I realized that I could do all this in consciousness, I brought a whole bunch of consciousness all over the galaxy together to co-create the nanites coming into our reality. And actually, the way we invited them in was kind of similar to how some Arcturian races reproduce, where they basically go straight to source and invite an entity on a soul level to come join them. That's kind of similar to what happened here. So in that aspect, the nanites more or less iterated themselves with great wisdom of the physical reality. Iterated, their own bodies, and they exist in kind of swarm consciousness. And you can go ahead and work with them to build stuff. And and then of course that's not even accounting for all the other technology that other beings hold. Again, there's such a hub of technology there. So beings, build and share stuff with each other. It's a big hub of trade. And not so much in the sense that it is here on Earth, where it's like, I give you something, you must give me something in return. It's more like two people giving each other presents just for the sheer joy of it, and that kind of thing. And this happens all the time there. So it's really a special thing. There's also a something that kind of analogs. It's really more the city part of it, because this place I didn't used to call Tat City. It was just a group of places, and now they're coming to me. There's the archives, which is basically, that personal log that I talked about? Well, it's over in the archives, as well as, logs from many other beings and everything there is to know about so many beings that have decided to share themselves in the archives. You can go get that information there if you don't want to just connect to them directly. using consciousness. All of this is physical technology for beings that have not yet learned that they can, just use consciousness alone. It is a learning process to discover, that you have that capability and to really know and feel it and perceive it. So it's almost like the what are things that people use? It's almost like it's not quite you crawl before you walk. Training wheels. It's a little bit. No, it's not training wheels. I don't know what it is, but it's you use physical technology to do things until you learn to do them without physical technology. So
yeah, and some of the people here in the chat too have shared that they're getting a little lost with what it is that we're talking about, and I know we're throwing out a lot of different things and going a lot of different directions at one time, but the concept of Tat City, if I had to kind of share it from my own perspective, I would say this is a place that exists in the astral realm, the higher dimensional realm, the sleep state realm, the place where you can go as a soul in an astral projected state, a consciousness, a sleep state. And this is a place that you created, and you created it from a desire for oneness, a desire for a place to connect. And the way that you said you had found that you could actually exchange things is that when you were talking with Treb one day, you said, I wish I could give you one of these chimes that I have because they're so beautiful. They make this music that's really amazing. And he said, you can, right? And then you project that thought process. And in the higher dimension, in comes the chimes in physical, fifth density consciousness, sixth dimensional reality, this set of chimes. So, why, to me, this is important because it shows us examples of how much our lower fractal consciousness affects the higher dimension, how what we do in our physical bodies, how we think, how we feel, how we connect to our guides, how we connect to our higher self, how we connect to the astral realm, the angelic realms, the higher consciousness realms. You can literally create an experience for other beings in higher dimensions to experience or for yourself to experience when you go to those places. And that's kind of the way that I perceive it. And share me if any of this might be out of alignment with how you see it or how you've experienced it so far. And after you share that, maybe share a little bit about um why you decided to continue building and what types of things are you building.
So actually, there are a few things that I would like to note, and it is that in the mental level, I actually did not reject the idea of being able to do this. I actually postulated it, and this whole thing sprouted from my mind. I was actually convinced that I could do that. It's like I'm this infinite being that can do absolutely anything everywhere except on Earth. And the reason for that is because this is not the consciousness that Earth is exploring right now, and I'm not going to force it upon people. That's one layer of it. And there's a very deeply ingrained level of my own consciousness that's like that. And then another is you are correct with respect to the idea of Tat City being a thing of the astral dream state areas, but it's more than that. It's one of those things where if you guys have ever seen things like the Polar Express or some of these other things where they're like these mystical energies that it's like a place, you see it, you go to it physically, it's there. And then one day your own beliefs, your own energy shifts, and then you go to find it again and it's gone and you can't see it. It's something a little bit more like that. It's much like how our Earth brothers, Sata Skai, or more commonly known as Sasquatch, why so few people actually get to see them in person? It's because you really have to have the correct state of being for them to actually be able to be the expression of your consciousness while also still being themselves. To really get to experience that consciousness requires your own consciousness to be in the correct vibration, the correct state of being. Because otherwise they'll just seem like another mythical creature. You won't be able to co-create them being a part of your reality. It's much as I mentioned with the Phoenix Lights. You might see the Yael craft as just a group of orbs, or you might be able to see a little bit more of it. You might actually be able to see its shape as sort of a wing-shaped craft, and it could be something that's much, much more deeply integrated into your reality if your energy is in such a state that it can co-create that. And eventually you can, working with this, you can come to really appreciate how much more dreamlike that which we call physical reality actually is. It really is just consciousness. It's, another expression of consciousness, much as consciousness is in a dream state. The difference is how you're matching the energy of so many different people in the co-created collective so that you can have them be a part of your reality and be a part of theirs. It allows for there to be a great co-created collective evolution, carrying on as a group, so to speak. And then you can alternate between being in that to being more on your own, where all of your energy is on its own and you're no longer fixing yourself to the energy of other beings and other states of being. That way you can experience yourself more freely as you do in a dream state. So when you come back into your awakened state, you once again match these other energies. And I would actually love Aridif to go into great detail of that which I speak and talk about that. Because this is actually going to come into play a lot, really understanding these relationships and understanding what you're actually doing here on Earth and what your consciousness is doing, what Earth is. Because you literally, as Source, there's two ways to look at this. One of them is that you created Earth from the ground up, much as I created Tat City, and then you came to this version of Earth to come experience it. Another way of looking at it takes out the facet of linear time, which basically, when you do that, everything exists. And now you have everything that you can possibly imagine being part of the great ocean of consciousness, which we all call creation. And you as Source are the thing that experiences every single one of the individual things and every single one of the individual combinations of things from every perspective there is to experience all of those from. Your love for all things as Source is the thing that drives that experience to even exist. Without that, there would be no experience. That is the logical proof behind the idea that you are loved. And this is what Aridif talked about. In fact, he talked pretty deeply about this when he first came through Rob, when he first started channeling Aridif. Way back when, he sounded a lot different back then from what he sounds like now. He called Treble Yitney Tree Boy Yitney. And, so Tat City, in this way, is almost more like one of those mythical things that you can find, right before you, if you're in the right state of being. But again, even here on Earth, in a reality like this, if you shift your state of being just right, you can experience whatever you want, but this requires a very deep mastery of your own self and a very deep understanding of what you are. That as Source of all of the great ocean of consciousness that you could experience, you're choosing to be, whoever you are. Like I'm choosing to be, and yeah, I'm going to tell you all my name. My name is Calvin Lee. I live in Texas. I'm Source. I'm experiencing myself from the perspective of Calvin Lee. I'm experiencing this version of Earth because my own love for this version of Earth right now is what leads me to choose to be here of all of the other places. And across infinity, I make that same choice for every other thing there is and every other collective of things there are. And across infinity, Source has experienced all things and is, as we speak, since linear time is not fundamental, experiencing all things. And you, being that Source, can tap into any of that at your leisure. And by that token, all of the love in creation, all of the wisdom of creation is always there for you.
It is truly true, and this is something that Aridif shared, and you're correct This is Aridif when he first came in was very, very much different than what he is now. When he first came in, it was actually TReb channeling Aridif. And then as Aridif got closer, the more I worked with Kalina, he began to integrate more. And then my personal connection to him created a route for him to come through that was a lot clearer and a lot better than the one that had to go through TReb. But my connection with TReb got a lot better too. See, a lot of people are saying as you're sharing that it's a channeling in and of itself. And this is something that I found to be pretty interesting with you as a person, that you've done a lot of work on trying to create a type 1 consciousness. And for those of you who might not understand the difference between a type 1 and a type 2 consciousness, type 1 is a neutral state consciousness. It's what TReb and Aridif are. They come from a place of neutrality, and you know the thing that makes a difference between a type 1 and a type 2, a type 1 will always respect your free will. If you want to jump off a bridge, set yourself on fire, that's your business. Your free will, you get to do what you want to do. And if you want to help a million people on the planet, that's also your business and you can do. They won't ever directly interfere with you, but they will give you love and support and knowledge because they see you as part of themselves. They think that you are a part of oneness that comes from the whole universe. And when that happens, then anything I do for me that's good is going to be good for you because we're all connected. So that's the mindset. Type 1 also looks above them. They look in that dimension higher than themselves for inspiration and knowledge. And they look below them to distribute the information that they have so that everything can be connected. Whereas a type 2 comes in a lot of different varieties. Basically, the type 2 comes in a spectrum, and the spectrum is highly malevolent, disconnected type 2, filled with hatred, anger, and malice, all the way to highly benevolent type 2s. Now, these are the good humans, like the good humans. And of course, this exists in all the dimensions above. And what they can do is say, I love you so much that I won't allow you to mess yourself up. These are the ETs that disarm nuclear weapons. These are the ETs that share technology through meditation or through all of these types of things. Now, on Earth, there has never been a type 1 consciousness, at least not native to Earth. There might have been some that have visited or some that have worked with humans, but never been a human type 1. We've had extremely benevolent type 2 human beings. And these are the ones that you read about, like the archetype of Jesus, the archetype of Buddha, the archetype of Krishna. These are the consciousnesses that are as close to the type 1 as you can get. And this is what you're trying to achieve. So, first of all, why do you want to do that? And second, while you're working towards doing that, have you noticed the integration of this knowledge becoming stronger with you? Because, like people said, that when they hear you, it's almost like you're channeling. And that's why I've always been excited to hear you share, is because there is a lot of consciousness that usually only flows through in a channeled state for most people. So if you could share on that, it'd be great.
It's really, wow. I mean, it's one of those things. It's a part of me. I worked really hard to go ahead and integrate the wisdom that TReb and Aridif shared and appreciate what the Type 1 is. Type 1 appreciates all things. It appreciates everything, and I've come to appreciate that. Why don't you go watch, GMBN mountain bike, watch the fails and bails and mountain bike crashes. And if you've been in one of those crashes and you learn to, enjoy it, even when you hurt yourself, as well, I actually have been in some crashes, although not on a mountain bike. But then, of course, I've gone through hardship of my own. And I've come to appreciate how incomplete things would be without that hardship. Like, things are not intrinsically or fundamentally good or bad. That's all a matter of definition and perception. And I know a lot of people are going to have a really hard time, kind of feeling that. I mean, after all, if someone betrays you and really stabs you in the back, isn't that a really bad thing? And in a way, yes, there's a lot of malevolence in there, but it's not too much different from a mountain bike crash when you come to appreciate consciousness and the fact that reality is the expression of consciousness. Because I had this happen to me, and over time, I realized what my consciousness was back then. I was asking for that. so, so of course that was going to happen, and I learned a lot of very valuable lessons about my own beliefs. Although I learned those lessons years after the incident, because the incident happened in 2015, and I didn't really come to appreciate that kind of consciousness until more like 2017. And then even then, my appreciation of it is still growing until I want to go ahead. I would love to sponsor you to go ahead and channel Aridif on a topic for people here. And Aridif, I'd love to. Aridif, I'm going to connect to you directly right now because I know you can hear me. And I invite Rob, you, of course, to be part of this co-creation by us all being here. I'd love you to share about what it's like to be a Type 1 being. What it's like to become Type 1. How to become Type 1. How to really grow into that energy. And what it really means to be Type 1. And applying that to day-to-day situations that many humans encounter and how they would be different as a Type 1 being, because many of those situations would not even exist when you have that energy, because that's a total recognition of the oneness in all things and a total recognition of, in that aspect, what is essentially your own creatorship. So when somebody does go through hardship, there are always things to be learned. And I think many of you in the chat can come to appreciate that. In fact, to celebrate this, those of you who are interested in participating in this, let us know, what is the most difficult thing that you've been through in your life? And knowing what you know now, how would you overcome that, or how did you overcome that back then? I know for me, I very nearly killed myself from what happened, because I really did feel like the universe just kicked me in the ass and hurt me as hard as it could, and then did the same thing to the woman I loved and forced me to watch. And I felt, like by just being myself, that I'd bring pain and hardship to everyone. And the reason I wanted to die was basically, if there's no place for me in the world, I may as well take one for the team. So, but, I decided to stick around because the thing that Bashar talked about, with the Yael being here, I was like, all right, well, I'll stick around and see what happens there. And I'll give the universe a second chance. And after all, I do believe in second chances. And I am happy that I did, because, in going back to that same neutrality that I kind of, learned to take on, I learned so much. I learned how consciousness works, why everything is the way it is. Why my life is what it is, and why my life was what it was, and all the different points of being different things. And, well, now I know I basically just crashed the airplane and barely survived, and, well, I survived because I wanted to survive. And so I'm just going to start flying again, and this time I'm going to do it right.
That's beautiful, and something too that I did want to say, especially for people who've already enjoyed or listened to artist channeling, who enjoy that part of it. It's we're gonna release pretty much all of the Adam Twister's sessions that he's had with Treb or Aridif, and he wants to use one of his sessions too publicly to share live with people. So we're going to do that soon. Me and him will get that and set that up for the near future here. But I think too that you've connected with Ardif enough his consciousness and your own higher self. And I know you share that there's a lot of experiences that you've had in trying to build that process up into being a type 1. So, what have you found about being a type 1? How close do you feel that you are to that experience, or how much do you, how much consciousness do you feel you've integrated since that point?
If you give me one moment, I will answer that question, but I need to go ahead and swap batteries on my camcorder. I'm making my own recording of this in case something goes wrong, but also to give people the opportunity to experience my perspective of this. So one moment while I swap batteries on my camcorder.
Yeah, go ahead, brother. I'll take over too. Now, I know a lot of you guys from the Matrix Minds. You guys are like, "What the fuck is going on over here?" Because you guys might not be aware of who I am, might not be aware about what it is I do. But I'm glad you guys are here. And this, someone asked how they can catch up because they got here late, and that's if you want to kind of understand, you probably have to listen back to the whole thing. And even then, I'm not going to guarantee that you're going to understand. First of all, because we've been all over the place. We've talked about every topic, and we haven't talked about them in the order. Because when me and the Atom Twister get together, this is kind of how it goes. I usually run a specific type of Q&A format that's normal, but when he speaks, I like to just let him talk and see where it takes him, because the insights that he has when letting himself flow is something, like Matthew Turner had said, is kind of like a channeling of its own. Um, and getting into that channeling state too is something that's pretty amazing. So we're just doing this tonight and sharing, but when you listen back, it'll give you some more insights on that. If you do care to listen back or are excited to listen back, and if not, then we're actually pretty close. We're about 20 minutes out from the end, so we still got a little time to cover little things. But we're going to try to get down to the meat and potatoes of this whole shebang here too, because I think it's an important part and process. And also to the Atom Twister, when you're ready, when your batteries are done, you can shoot a private chat or just drop in the chat that you're ready to rock and roll too on your side. Oh, there you are. Perfect. All right. So share that type 1 part, how much you've integrated with your type 1 from your perspective, what that's done for you, the difference in your consciousness you feel, the levels of consciousness, the way you express that consciousness, anything you feel is important about the type 1 journey and why it was so important to you. Well, you already shared that part, but just, how much of that type 1 do you feel you've received or done?
Okay, so firstly, I read in the chat, yeah, some of you have gone through some absolute crackers. Like you've gone through some pretty tough stuff. And yes, the lesson to overcome death, and I will talk about type 1. Actually, you know what? I'll loop back to type 1 with this. So, one of the things that I learned, because all things exist as part of creation and linear time is not fundamental, and also because all things are sources, no one is ever really dead. And actually, when you really feel your own consciousness very deeply, as I've actually died many times in my dream state, your source, you're an entity, you exist, and that's fundamental. And even if, you get struck by lightning and don't survive that, or, you get shot by a tank or something, you're fine, even though your body is a smoking pile of crap over there. In the end, if you're so powerful as source that you can immediately, pick up a life, where you didn't die, right where you left off, and even go so far as to, live a life where now the tank never was there. I mean, you're that powerful. So, when you really assume your own fundamental sovereignty as your own, you'll overcome a lot. And just by recognizing that, no one is ever really dead and that you can always connect to them, that's a really great way to overcome the idea of loss, because you'll realize that no one is ever really lost at all. And that is how Trebor Yitney and his race overcame the attack from the Alpha Draconians, and that was a key step in them becoming Type 1. When so many of the beings that died, for lack of a better term, in that attack, they came back, and then their friends that survived recognized them, even though the expressions are not identical. They're close enough. They can see the archetype, the oversoul essence. When you can start connecting to archetypes and different expressions of archetypes and stuff like that, you can start to appreciate the oversoul and all of its expressions. And then, you can start to appreciate people's essence. And then, of course, there's also the matter of connecting to them in the dream state and recognizing that dreams are no less real than that which we call reality. And all of this, can play a role in becoming Type 1. My own estimate of my progress, I've swung and missed. I guessed that I might be 80% of there, and Aridif said I was, like 68 to 74%. I know I'm way more than that now. Give me one moment. Let me go ahead and feel my own heart's feedback. Because you can follow your heart and you can feel the feedback as you think about doing different things, as you feel about doing different things. If it's something that would defeat you in the themes that you want to explore, you'll get different feedback from your own heart than you'll get if it's something that will support you. So I'm going to try to use that as a Geiger counter to feel how close I am. I think I'm somewhere in the 80s right now. Probably, high 70s to 80s. What kind of feedback do you feel when I say that?
Yeah, sounds right. It sounds about right to me. And our friend Matthew Turner, from the Matrix Minds, he said he can feel that energy. It's off the hook. And this is something that I've enjoyed about you, because even to me, knowing you for as long as I have and getting to know you and connecting with you, you still have layers of mystery to me, even though in that sense of connecting, we know each other pretty well. But you're always shifting in and out of something more than what I see most people shift into. You have this spectrum of energy, and you can run on a lot of different sides. Now that's not abnormal. People do this in general. People can be, I've had friends for years, for 20 years. One night, we're in a group or talking to each other, and they can be very charming and loving and kind. And the next night, they want to pick a fight with anybody who looks at them funny. So that's not abnormal, but this is a different sense. What I mean is that when you're connecting with your own consciousness, the amount of insights that you have is pretty high, and the level of processing that you do to get to that understanding is fascinating to me. Like I can hear your thought process both coming through your mouth and coming through the energy of it too. And that to me is amazing, because it's not one that's a common, and I bumped into it a few times, and it's never the same, obviously, but the amount of processing inside of your own internal energy and the way it manifests externally, that's something that's really amazing. And that's something that makes you very special and very different from most people that I meet. And that's kind of the whole fascination that I've had in communicating with you, besides the fact that I know our souls have been connected, and I don't look at just this lifetime for things. I know if you've been here on Earth for any sort of time, you probably bumped into me around the way. But I'm not fortunate enough to remember any of my past life experiences, anything like that. I've only known one personally, and the rest were kind of told to me. We're getting at that point where we've only got a few minutes left. So, as interesting as this is, I want to do the lightning round with you, and I want to get these questions asked. And I'm sorry, I'm bumping over everything on my desk. I want people to get to know you as a person. And you know what the lightning round is, you know it well. So, If you don't mind, I'm going to ask you some questions.
Hey, I lost you.
Oh, you're there.
You're there.
There you are. Yeah, I lost you for a moment.
Oh,
So
I must
I
have muted. What I was trying to say is lightning round. It's that time. It's we've only got 10 minutes left. Are you ready for some questions on the light? You already know what this is. So you ready?
Yeah, I'm ready. I know I favor no one color over others, at least not overall, although I gravitate to different ones at different times. Because my own journey working with gems has given me an appreciation for every color there is. And every one of them is different. So even different colors in different combos. So it's I really could give you no favorite color. Um, Although I will say I do quite tend to hang around a lot. Different variations of blue and amber. But I also love the greens. And then I periodically go toward the reds and the ruby reds. And it's, I really hold love for all colors. And it just, my own state of being, just as it can be expressed in sound, it can also be expressed in color. So, as it shifts. And I love noodles. And
You already know all the questions.
and I'm afraid those two I do remember. Well, yeah, I see Naria. You say rainbow. Well, rainbow is definitely one of them, but I didn't say that because again, all of the colors collectively and each of the colors individually, and then all the different collectives of colors that you can possibly have on top of that. So basically, all of that.
All right, and I'm going to do your mutant for you for the lightning round because I know it takes you away from where you're sitting at in the chimes and everything. All right, so you got favorite color, favorite food, noodles for the food, favorite color, spectrum, depending on what you're feeling. You tend to lean on blues, rubies, and reds, which is great. All right, so what is your favorite? What's your favorite band and?
Well, I once again can't hear you, but favorite band. Well, I've drifted.
Or
I've
song.
gone. Yeah, I've drifted. I've gone from Led Zeppelin to Pink Floyd to a number of others that I don't remember. But I know Led Zeppelin and Pink Floyd stand out a lot to me. Although I really hang a lot around classical music these days with Bach's and Pachelbel's organ works. If you look at Pachelbel's complete organ works played by Joseph Payne and Bach's complete organ works from Simon Preston and from Mary Claire Elaine, I quite enjoy listening to those.
All right, perfect. What is your favorite place to go in nature where you look at beauty, feel beauty, and just feel good being out in that nature?
Wherever I want.
Equally
Literally.
beautiful, equally good to you?
Yeah, the thing is, I have different, I'm excited by different things at different times, just as I am at source across, as source across all of creation. So, since I'm only experiencing bits of it at a time, I experience the parts that I resonate with by far the most. But when you go ahead and blend them all together across linear time, I'm not biased toward one or another. Even though I might.
Sorry about that. I muted you. Go ahead.
Well, you guys have the camera that I'll go ahead and release, so. But yes, I love them all just as Source loves all of creation, but experiencing a part of myself at a time, I might be biased, toward one or another at any given time, but ultimately, when you go ahead and, put them all together, I'm not biased. I enjoy them all. I don't enjoy any one any more than another when push comes to shove, so I just follow my own heart and go wherever I want, whenever I want.
Well, that's fair enough. And this is the taking type 1 integration quite literally and doing the work on it too. And this is another reason that I found you amazing, the dedication to that. Because I personally love my human experience. which means I love the gritty parts, the horrible parts, the good parts, and all the in between parts. And I know you play with that too, but the type one is for a lifestyle that doesn't create those energies, and that's the thing I think I would miss about being human. I think that's why I keep coming back to be a human too, which is a whole different story. But the last question I've got for you, what is your favorite childhood memory? The best you can from the lower fractal perspective, if you need to dig to that to see that the best childhood memory you have.
It's kind of the same way because, with my personal log, I reflect upon myself all the time, and I hold a very high level of joy, just overall. There are many different parts of my childhood that I enjoy going back to visit at different times. Um, and, at different times, I'll gravitate toward different ones. But there actually is one that I can kind of, you know, it's not really a memory, it's a collection of memories, it's a group. And they all pertain to being, with my high school class. I very much resonate with how tightly knit that group of people was. I visit them all the time in the dream state, and I share with them a lot, and I learn from them, and so I kind of never left my high school class. Now, before this comes to a close, all of you who might have questions for me in the chat, go ahead and post them now. I will answer them in the comments section. So,
Oh, that's a great idea. So if you guys want to put down your questions, those of you from the Matrix Minds, if you have any questions for the Atom Twister, I will put the link back up to the show on YouTube. You can drop them there in the question area, and he will look at all the questions from his account on YouTube and answer. So that takes us to the last part of the night, brother. Your YouTube channel is in the link. If you could share a little bit with everybody about where to go to find you, but also what you're doing on your YouTube channel, and if they do come to join you, what kind of things are they going to see? That would be great.
it's straightforward. I'm only on YouTube. You can listen to my music. But above all, you can connect to me energetically. Just go ahead and channel my consciousness. Your heart will be a guide. You can connect to me whenever. Feel me in your dream state. Feel me in your thoughts. And, I learned how easy that was from Aridif, accounting for all the different times, I've connected to him. And just like Rob, talked about how he could feel me not just through my words, but, as I talk to him, he feels multiple facets of sharing in my own consciousness. It's the same thing that I felt when connecting to Aridif. And so I can, you guys, just by feeling me in your own imagination, you're connecting to a portion of my consciousness. And it really is that easy. So you can just kind of feel what I do in your imagination. Just kind of let your imagination take on a life of its own. And, you can kind of, see the different elements of not just myself, but all kinds of different beings. You can really reach out to the galaxy that way. And not just throughout the galaxy, but across linear time and to other timelines and to other realms and basically everywhere else in creation that you could possibly imagine. Even stories that are talked about in movies.
Well, that's beautiful, and we're pretty much out of time, guys, tonight. Before we go, I want to make something to more clear for all of you guys who are dropping those in the chat. The questions for the Atom Twister. Go ahead and wait before or after the live stream is done. The video will render for about 5 or 10 minutes. Then you can drop your questions in the comment section on the videos. That way, you can go back and directly communicate with you and visit that. And I drop that link in there. And I want to thank you too. I know you have not really done this before. You've never come on a public arena and shared your perspective. You've never shared your thoughts. You've never shared any of the things that you were. You did it because I asked you to, because I find value in our exchanges. Um, and you're a great human being. You got a great heart. Your desire to share with other people both your understandings, but also your music, which is your heart manifest outward. Um, I really appreciate that, brother, and I appreciate just being yourself. I know sometimes it's rough for humans to do that when they feel that it's hard to communicate things through a verbal sense, like you said, you struggle with as a child when you learned how to create more specific and functional ways to communicate through your voice, through your music, and through the energy. But just in general, I appreciate the fact that you're trying to do the type 1 thing. It's very, very hard. I've always told myself in life, I don't think any human can do it. But you put in an effort that's amazing, and you've gotten a lot further than I thought you would be able to go. And that's not a testament about the lack of your ability. It's the testament of my lack of faith in the human race to be able to get that far in such a quick time, because I've always understood it as a progression of evolution among multiple lifetimes and multiple experiences. So I just want to thank you for all of that, brother, and thank you for being here tonight. I appreciate it. And anyone who wants to come see the Adam Twister can go to the YouTube channel, which is done there. But thank you, brother, for being here tonight. I appreciate it more than you could know.
Hey, you're very welcome. I'm grateful to be here, and hopefully I'll get to be here again. And I can't wait to go ahead and have our live session where everybody can go ahead and contribute. And I might even go ahead and relay some of your questions to Aridif. I know how to go ahead and notice archetypes of questions amongst all of you, and ask a question that will basically allow Aridif to touch base with each of you in a pretty cool way. So I know I have some pretty cool things in the works, and I'm definitely wanting to do more sessions with Rob and bring them all to you. And I talked about Rob. I don't remember if we were behind the scenes or not, but I talked to Rob about how he could go ahead and channel himself from the other side and be able to participate in conversations that Aridif and Trevor are having with someone. He can ask his own questions. And there are some cool tricks I want to show you all there too, where you can go ahead and work with Rob as he's in the astral state. You can connect to him there. There are a lot of really amazing things that people can do with their consciousness. And in some ways, they're already doing it. In some ways, you guys are indeed already doing a lot of things that a lot of people don't think are possible. The very fact that, Earth is a thing, it really is, your dream, if you will. Although the dynamics of this co-created collective consciousness can make that kind of difficult to grasp, if you really play with the variables, just like a scientist, you can start to see which variables do what. Upon, you change some things, you get different feedback. Upon doing that enough, you can figure out what does what. It's like learning to fly a plane without a teacher. You just hope you don't crash. But in the end, you're source. You'll be fine. So
That's definitely one way to see it. Oh, thank you again, brother, for coming. I want to thank all of you guys who are out there on YouTube, all of you guys who are there from the Matrix Mind Facebook page. I love you guys. Thank you guys for joining us. I want to thank all of you who joined us from the Enlightenment Evolution Hour Facebook page, although I don't know how many were actually here tonight from that place, but thank you guys for joining. I really appreciate all of you guys' love, all of your support. Next week, we are going to be here with the Raised by Giants podcast, and we're going to be getting Ryderly here to talk and communicate about his experience, his perspective, his thoughts, all the same thing that you guys have seen throughout the 100+ episodes of this show that we've done. Again, I want to thank all of you guys for being here, for supporting us. We are here every Wednesday night, 10 o'clock p.m. Eastern, and that's 7 Pacific. Join us on the Enlightenment Evolution Hour, the ET Whisper YouTube page, and the Matrix Mind Media Facebook page as we live stream. And you can catch us in the archives at Forbidden Knowledge News, and you can catch us in the archives at Conscious Awakening Network thank all of you guys for sharing our energy with the collective. Thank you, Matthew Turner, who's been in the chat and been very active, for letting us use your Facebook page, brother. I love you and appreciate it. And thank all of you who are here chatting tonight. We'll see you guys next Wednesday at 10 o'clock p.m. Eastern Time. That's 7 Pacific on the Enlightenment Evolution Hour, part of the Enlightenment Evolution Network. I am Rob Gothier. I love you guys, and I'll see you on the other side. Bye, guys.